right after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. I enlisted to be a switchboard operator. Women's Auxiliary Army Corps. We were to replace the men that were not in combat, but we were to replace anyone that was in an office duty. They sent us to Daytona Beach for basic training, and then while we were still in Daytona Beach, they sent us to the business school for office training to tell us what was going on in the Army and all the details of the Army. I was there until they decided to make it the Women's Army Corps. And then we had a choice of staying there or going home. So I came home and enlisted in the Air Corps. And then from there, I got orders for overseas and back to Fort Des Moines, Iowa for more training. And we learned survival training there. And from there, we went to Paris on the Queen Mary, which was being followed by a sub. And the Queen Mary was zigzagged, so could zigzag very easily. But the sub couldn't get a bead on the ship. And that's the way they traveled. From Fort Dix, we went to London. We were there for about a week until they could arrange transportation to France. One night, the air raid siren sounded, and we all got under our cots until it was clear. And that was the last bomb that fell on London in the war. We were there 9 months, almost to the day, in the hotel that the Germans had their headquarters. The whole hotel was nothing more than offices at this time. There was no rooms for rent. I met my first husband in Paris. And after we were married here, we went to France again, or Germany first. And we were there until the American forces left Germany and went to France.
Elaine and I had been going together for 3 or 4 years, and we wanted to get married, and here I get my draft notice, and oh man, and so I went in the Army to Fort Knox, Kentucky in mid-August of 1965. And so I came home from basic training. We got married, and so I went to my on-job training in Fort Hood, Texas. So when I went to Fort Hood, first thing I asked was my commanding officer if I could bring my wife down. And he said, I don't recommend it, but I can't keep you from it. So I went out I couldn't keep her on post, so I had to go off post to Killeen, Texas. It's a little town right where Fort Hood is. And I found an apartment. In a couple months, we found out that Elaine was pregnant. And then, what are we gonna do, you know? And then I got my orders to be moved to the 53rd Signal Corps, and we were gonna go to Vietnam. I said, oh my gosh. And we were nervous as a cat about that. I mean, what are we gonna do? And holy cow, I said, oh my gosh, I'm gonna miss all this, and I'm gonna be in Vietnam when my son's born. And we talked to her mom and dad, and she was gonna live with her mom and dad. When we shipped out, I wrote her letter after letter, and she wrote me letter after letter. I mean, I was tuned in to my, you know, my newborn, or not even yet, and Elaine. So we were tight. We were tight. The doctor that she was seeing had just got out of the Army, and he knew exactly how to get a hold of me when Scott was born. And I'm thinking I knew within an hour of her delivery that I had a boy. And I was incredibly excited. I mean, wow. We were coming home. We were last landing at Fort Dix, and there was people spitting at us, calling us names, and you know what? I couldn't care less. I was honed in on my wife and my new baby, and I couldn't care less. The first time I saw Scott was when he was 9 months old. My whole family went to Chicago. I think they had two car loads come to Chicago, and that was something. I mean, to see her for the first time, and my son, and it was like, even though I've been riding her every day and her riding me every day, and I'm holding her and Scott, I was frightened, like strangers. Incredible.
My name is Brad Ulick. I was a sergeant in the United States Marine Corps, and I was also a survivor of the first attack on the War on Terror, the bombing of the Marine Barracks, October 23rd, 1983, in Beirut, Lebanon. I was pinned in the rubble, forced to inhale the concrete dust, the silica. Also, the concrete was laced with asbestos fibers. So today I deal with a number of respiratory issues, also have scars on my body. I was a lone survivor of my unit, which not only do I have the memories that I carry with me today, being placed in charge of the grave registry party, which I put 240 men in body bags, or what was left of them. It included my two best friends. The worst part about it was coming home. When you go through something like that, the effects last your whole lifetime. Being the only survivor in my unit, from the very beginning, I felt an incredible sense of guilt. Marines fight together, they live together, they should die together. And to be the only one that didn't, when I came home, people called me a hero. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a coward. I felt like I was abandoned I abandoned my friends. But worst of all, I felt that God abandoned me. Post-traumatic stress disorder is nothing new. It's something that those who have seen combat have always dealt with. Back during the trench warfare, World War I, it was called shell shock. During World War II, it was called combat fatigue. Today, we recognize it as a true event that does change your brain chemistry. And post-traumatic stress disorder is a life changer for those. It's something that never goes away. You can be walking in a crowd and feel so utterly all alone. It's like life is happening around you, and it's just hard because inside you're reliving the battles in your head. No one around you knows. Nobody wants to talk about it anymore, and nobody cares anymore. Most people probably don't even remember the event, remember the date. I realize it's a part of history now. But for me, sometimes it's like a far-off dream that I remember. Other times it's like it happened just a few moments ago. The Veterans Administration and the VA Medical Administration has taken it very seriously. You don't go to an appointment where they don't ask you how you're feeling and are you thinking about hurting yourself. So they've really stepped up watching that out, especially with so many veterans coming back from the recent war in Iraq and Persian Gulf War, and so many of them that are taking their own life. Sometimes you'd rather lose a limb. Every day, sometimes you wake up and say, today I'm going to live. Today I'm not going to kill myself. Today, it doesn't matter what I feel. I know what God has said. And so I determined that today I'm going to live today.